You're listening to Free Zone Radio.
From Free Zone Radio, I'm Jason Crockett, and this is Second Stage. For the 4th of July, we kicked off our month-long celebration of America's 250th with our founding fathers and the popular, uplifting musical Hamilton. But in this second week, we move away from the cradle of American liberty to a different neighborhood, the overcrowded and run-down Chicago tenements of Lorraine Hansberry's 1959 hit, A Raisin in the Sun. Hansberry takes her title from the Langston Hughes poem Harlem, which asks, what happens to a dream deferred, whether it dries up like a raisin in the sun? Our goal this month is to reconsider plays for the classroom that explore this very question about the so-called American dream. We use that term all the time, but what exactly is the American dream? And does it apply to everyone? Or is the American dream a pay-to-play kind of experience, pricing out certain groups of people and offering more rights, more freedoms, more play only to those who can pay? Hansberry's characters struggle with the inequalities of the 1950s and 1960s. But I'll tell you, the more time I spend with them, the more familiar their problems seem to what I see and hear in the 2020s as well. So, as America celebrates 250 years of its promise, A Raisin in the Sun asks us to reconsider whose dreams have been realized, whose remain deferred, and what that disparity reveals about our American experience today. So, for America's 250th, I wanted to do something a little different. Normally, this show only does, ideally, like one episode a month. But for America's 250th, I thought that we would just break with that and do one a week. And there's so many different plays that are like America, like different tangents.
I thought you were going to do 250 a week.
It's 250 characters that I'm trying to wedge into one month. That's what it is. The America's 250th only comes around one time, right? You never get it again. So let's do something fun with it. The first week, I used a recording with. I did a show for Hamilton with one of my students from this semester. And as I was listening to it with April, I was like, listen to how idealistic this is. Listen to how optimistic this is. America, boom, 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 boom. And I looked at her and I said, the next one's not. But I mean, let's be authentic. We can have these, uplifting, optimistic, idealistic stories about America, but most of our lives, our stories are not always that optimistic, uplifting, and ideal. We have a lot of struggle, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not just like we're all sitting out in the sun having, a good time. Sometimes you think about a dream deferred, and is it like a raisin in the sun? Mm-hmm. So this week, we're looking at Lorraine Hansberry's play, A Raisin in the Sun. During season 2, I am going to come back to this, and we're going to sit down with a couple of other teachers to talk about A Raisin in the Sun, because I want to look at different angles for how do you teach it, how do you read it, what does an audience member think like. But for this one, I thought we would just focus on how is it a reflection of America. So often, I think that people will probably approach this from the race angle. It's a very obvious angle, but it's not just about race. And let me say this too. The whole scope of this show is supposed to be considering plays that maybe once were popular, but nowadays have fallen off the radar. That's not true for Raisin in the Sun. Raisin in the Sun is a really popular play. It's just completely unknown to me. We've never used it in our school that I know of. And when I was watching it for the first time and reading it, I was thinking, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if you're white or black or whatever, like this show. And then I had to hit the brakes and I thought, no, it absolutely matters to the characters if you're white or
Yeah.
black. It matters to the themes, but it shouldn't matter to the audience, whether you're white, black, whatever. An American audience, a worldwide audience, can appreciate this story.
Hmm.
So that's the angle I wanted to come at it with America's 250th.
Yeah.
You read this play and you said you hated it. Is that what you
No,
said?
no, I did not say no.
Oh,
Don't
it was the
no.
opposite. You said you
No,
loved
I
it.
love this play. Yeah. Um, I think you can't read it without the race thing coming up. I think that that's what the intention was. I think that it's a play where she's trying to empower the black woman and the black man to dream and to not be ashamed of who they are. And I do think that, you were talking about this is a play for it doesn't matter what color. I think when I love to read black lit, and I think that when you as a white person reading it, it gives you a window into a world that we just don't really understand completely. And what I mean by that is there are just things that we don't experience as white people because of, I mean, I'm going to say the word because of privilege. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there are things that we don't have people coming to our house saying, "Hey, I heard you're moving into our neighborhood. We'd like for you not to." We don't have that experience of that happening. Now, we can relate, I think, in our area because it's something that we've talked about with Troy Smith because the poor white Appalachian has a lot in common with the poor black guy. You know what I'm saying? I do think though that there are some things that we get a window into, but maybe don't understand. But I do think though, when you look at like Walter, I mean, gosh, I can connect with Walter. Do you know what I'm saying? I think you and me, as just men and dads and husbands, can connect with Walter. And I'm sure that you look at the wife, our wives out there could connect with her. Do you know what I'm saying? So that that's that's what I love about Black Lit is you get to look into the world and maybe gain a little bit of um understanding and compassion towards um our fellow human that we don't understand, but also you get to see things like that and you wish you could have people who are so ignorant read these things and realize, oh wait, Walter is just a human, right? Like he's a man who experiences the same things that I experience. There is no other difference in him than that on a human level, right? And so I love this play because it was so real and it was just man, like I was reading it. I took it to the beach with me, and we always go to a restaurant in St. Augustine called Saltwater Cowboy, and the wait there is always like an hour and a half. So I always bring my book with me because the family will stay in the van. You can't make reservations. Family will stay in the van, and I will sit on the deck by the marsh and read. Dude, it was perfect. I'm sitting there by the marsh, the sun setting. I'm reading Raisin in the Sun, and I'm trying to remember the part, but man, like it got me. Like I was tearing up on the deck reading it, and I thought I'm gonna have to take a break, or I'm, I'm gonna
Mm,
bust out crying amongst all these strangers. So it's just all the plays you have brought my way, and I've been so thankful for. Um, this has been the best one for me.
good. Uh, yeah, I had zero experience with this to start with. It's like the importance of being earnest. I've always heard the name. I know it's successful in the classroom. I don't know anything about it. But boy, I immediately fell in connection with a lot of these characters. And I say that as a white man, 46 years old in 2026, who does not live in their Chicago situation, station in life in the 50s. But Lorraine Hansberry gives us this play in 59. And here we are in 2026. And I'm thinking, same old people, same thing happening. Now, the characters in Raisin in the Sun are living in a Chicago where black folks are sometimes moving into white neighborhoods and white folks are firebombing their houses, are trying to terrorize people back into segregation.
Yeah.
We may not exactly have that situation, but we have race problems in America today. And something disgusting to me is that when I say a truth like that, there's an element, that same firebombing element in our society today would say, woke.
Yeah.
They would point at you and be like, you're woke. He's gone woke. He's saying that. No, it's blatantly obvious. We still have problems of disparity, inequality, social injustice, racial injustice, gender injustice, like over and over. We have a very blatant problem in America, and it's just being agitated over and over. And I think ignoring it or trying to put a nice shiny layer of white paint on top of it, like Mr. Linder and the others do,
Yeah.
it is only going to agitate that. It's like painting over a really nasty, rusty spot on the car, and it's just going to continue to rust. Or, I don't know, picking at a scab. It's just going to be continuing to agitate.
Well, it's like
So,
something you said with Mr. Lindner there at the end. I think you were talking about Mark and Sheila's Joe. His character was like, I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to help. I'm just here to help. And how, like, I had labeled Mark as a vampire, but you had labeled him as the devil. And like that makes much more sense because he's a trickster, right? He's trying to make it seem like this dark, evil thing that I'm doing is for your benefit. I'm doing this for you. And that's what Mr. Linder does when they've bought the house to move into the white neighborhood. That's what he shows up and he's like, hey, we think y'all are awesome. I have no problem with you guys, but we'd like to keep our neighborhood a certain way. And we think that it'd be best for everybody. And, and we do still have people that talk like that today, and you can't hide evil.
mm-hmm.
You can't hide evil. You can mask it for a little while, but real people will see through that. And you do have like a devil character, and unfortunately, yeah, I mean we do still have situations where it's kind of like, I mean, it'd be best if y'all stayed in your corner and we stayed in ours. And I've talked about that on my podcast so much, is like, if we did not have a coming together as races, how much of our culture here in the South would be lacking?
Mm-hmm.
All of it would be, you know what I mean? Like all of it. I mean, we honestly, we don't bring much to the table, do we?
Who was it?
We
Somebody
got,
the other day just said what white folks called jazz was what black folks just called music. And you just co-opted it. You took a label and you put it on there, and you're like, there, that's mine now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we've contributed like country bluegrass and kind of some of those Appalachian things and all of that. But anyways, without rambling, I just think that that's what makes this play relevant. You and I talked about this off mic. Hansberry says that it's set after World War II to now, knowing that her play would be used in the future. So it could be set at any time, which that is really sad, because that means she's saying, I don't think this problem is going to get better, and like you said, I don't think we're at right now a point where we're firebombing houses to get people out of neighborhoods, but
we do live in a society that is rounding up people with not exactly law enforcement troops that are sending them to Alligator Alcatraz, and like they're still going after brown people left and right. And I mean, I was not alive during the bicentennial, so all I know is what I hear people say about it, but it seemed like it was a pretty popular time. It seemed like it was a pretty good celebration. And then here at America's 250th, I feel like there was a lot of complaining, a lot of dissatisfaction with the country. You look at the mall, and the reflecting pool is a travesty that's being fenced off, and people who dare approach it are being sent off to prison. You have like all of this anger and resentment toward different sides in America. And this year, the one thing that brought us together was the World Cup. It was the World Cup, right?
And I talked to Raj about this last night because, they've kind of been watching the World Cup, but I mean, I guess I don't want to say if I'm a soccer guy or not. I mean, I guess I am. I coached it for nearly a decade, so, I told, Flo Balogun got that red card, and it wasn't a red card. It shouldn't have been a red card. The process they did, everything about it was wrong. So I agree with that. And we were talking about it, and then I had sent them a screenshot of the breaking news that it was getting reversed. That was all that the news headline said from Wall Street Journal, was it was getting reversed. And then it came out later that day that the president had been meddling in it. And I told him, like, it's not political when I say this. And I know that I didn't say this to my friends because I knew that they would think that Drew was being liberal, but I really hate that he did that because this has been the best World Cup I've watched in a long time. Like, and
Yeah.
when you look at the videos and stuff, people have been having a blast over here. And of course, he cannot keep his nose out of
I
it.
know.
And it's not about him. And so he's had to make it about him. And it has stained this World Cup. It has made it look like there was corruption and favoritism for America. And it's just such a shame, because like you're talking about this 250th stuff, I've been seeing so many people saying like, I am optimistic about our future. Like, we are in a dark space right now, but I'm optimistic about our future. What's the approval rating right now? 35%, something like that. So really the biggest problem is a very, very, very loud 35% of Americans, right? Like 65% of us are kind of saying, okay, let's turn a chapter here and
Yeah.
are optimistic about it. And so I don't know. I think the World Cup is kind of a good look at where America's at right now. There are good things happening, but there's just the one thing that cannot keep from letting just the average American have a good time.
Yeah.
So,
The vibe I get, and from what I read and from what I hear, everybody, the state of the country, the mood of the country seems to be a completely different place, right? I think we should all be honest about that. I think that for America's 250th, if we're wrangling with examining an angle of American society, I think this play absolutely matters to our students at White County High School too, even though our audience is predominantly white. Um, Again, if we're being honest, let's be honest. How many times have we had students in class who are naive about the living situation of all different kinds of people in this world, in this community? Um, I have had students, I can think of this boy right now in an honors class who, when we were looking at a picture of Oprah and Nicole Kidman, I think it was, and I said, which of these two, blah, blah, blah. And the boy said, who, the colored one? And I thought, we got to be careful about how we refer to people, buddy. We got to pay attention to not only the optics, but also we got to pay attention to what we're saying as well as what we're seeing. I also, in my very first AP class, had a student who was very tone deaf to the same sort of thing. And I remembered that Megan Wilson and I just kind of like looked at him, and I turned around and I wrote it on the board. He had said, well, these people, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, these people. Like, he had no concept of how pejorative it is to refer to a group of people as these people. Audience members, if any of you are thinking, why is Jason Crockett making a mountain out of a molehill? That is pejorative. to
Yeah.
immediately write off an entire subgroup of people. I don't care if you're black, white, whatever. If you're writing off a group of people so cavalier, these people, you don't hear the segregation in your own voice. You don't hear it in your own attitude and perspective on the world. And when this boy said that, I turned around to the board and I just started writing everything that he was saying. I didn't stop him. I just kept a tally. And so many of these coded words that he wasn't even aware of or built into his own language were coming out. Well, the same thing is true with A Raisin in the Sun. Here's a family of people existing in Chicago who are surrounded by the same disparity, inequality, and naivete to that.
Well, some of the things that you're talking about reminds me of a term that I at one time rolled my eyes at, and that was microaggressions. When I say I roll my eyes at, I think, even as I don't know, I guess a progressive thinker, there are so many terms and things that are labeled onto things, and you kind of do get tired of like, what's the new term now? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, one that you and I say a lot that I think is a new term is post-capitalism, right? That's like a new little phrase that's gotten hot lately. But you know, having class with people that can have helped me walk through these things, like you really do start to understand what they mean by microaggressions, right? When you say things like these people, okay, so maybe you didn't mean like something severely racist behind that, but there's just been so much of a past compounded with phrases like that that you do need to be aware of what you're saying. And the thing that we had talked about was that my friends' names were not being said correctly in class, and that was really upsetting to them. Well, I'll give an example. One of my friends' names is Monte, and he continually was being called Monty, and he kept saying, "Hey, no, it's Monte here." And so I think, like, on one point, okay, oh, my bad. Like, I'm sorry. I misspoke, but it was like a continual thing, right? And some people probably that are listening to this are rolling their eyes at me saying, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a name. But that's your name, right? Like, that's who you are as a person. And if I deny you, if I, Drew Haston, in my class have you, a white student, and your name might be John, but I continually call you Jan, like, I'm kind of denying you of your identity just a little bit.
Right.
And that's where that, like, that's what you're talking about. Like, we just, that's a lot of what kind of is going on. And, I know that a lot of people would say, well, times have gotten better and some people just don't need to be so sensitive. Okay. But let me kind of put it in an analogy here. If you were married in an abusive relationship for 30 years and you finally got out of that abusive relationship and you met someone better for you, are you still not going to be, after 30 years of abuse, are you still not going to be just a little like, hey, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, whoa. So I just, I was watching King of the Hill, King of the Hill, the new episode, and Hank goes to buy some Samoas, which I know that they're still called Samoas, but Mike Judge had changed his Girl Scouts to, like, I forgot, he changed the name to like sugar cookies, or I don't know, something like that. And Hank Hill was like, sugar cookies? Why are they not called Samoas anymore? And the little girl was like, because the Samoan people didn't appreciate that we named a cookie after them. And Hank was like, well, what's wrong with that? And the little girl was like, I don't know, but is it too bad for us to change a name just to make other people feel better when it doesn't matter? And Hank was like, I guess that's true. And so he bought the cookies and moved on. So
Well, for an aspect of America to say things have gotten better, I think we just need to not be so sensitive about it. You're absolutely right. That comes from a perspective of privilege.
yeah,
It's not sensitive to you, but it is to other people. And I'm not saying that we're making mountains out of molehills. You're talking about denying a voice. You're talking about denying an identity to people. And the group of people who are so stirred up about, well, it's just a name. What do names matter? Are the same group of people who are so upset about the use of pronouns in this country. So names do matter, terms do matter.
right.
I think we
Yeah.
just need to be respecters of humanity, and that, you know what, not everybody, it's like Atticus Finch taught Scout, not everybody has had it as good as you. Put yourself in another person's boots. Look at the human being and realize there's a lot of inequity. There's inequity in our classrooms. You have kids who just assume, oh, well, we all come to high school, we're all together. You have kids in this classroom who don't have running water at home in 2026. You have kids in this classroom who don't have electricity, who have a giant gaping hole in the floor of their double wide. And this January, it was 18 degrees outside. Like that's a living reality for these kids, that there is so much disparity here. And we're talking about a predominantly white community. Poverty is not gender specific, race specific. We're talking about an America. So let's just, America, have a respect for the other human beings we're surrounded by, and
Well,
not just round up the ones.
This will be the last thing that I say about all this, because I can really get this is a topic that's really important to me. You know, one of my best friends growing up was black. I've had a lot of close friends who have been brown or African American. You know, and so it really does is a topic that means a lot to me. So I'm going to try not to ramble too much about it, but you know, let's look at it this way. Some of these people are cheering on these billionaires and standing up for these billionaires. Like, well, you're just jealous because you don't make $1 billion. Like, you know, they're making great decisions. And um, let's stop looking at it as a race thing also, because you think that you're buddies with these guys, right? Like they represent me. They think like me. No, they're taking advantage of you just as much, because here's a quick example. I got a notification I've had Paramount Plus for 8 years. Got a notification last night. They're adding ads to my paid subscription, you know. Bought the new college football game. Raji was kind of teaching me through some things because I don't have time to look at these YouTube videos. He goes, oh, by the way, they've added microtransactions this year. And so it's like, okay, they're draining you, poor white kid, poor white guy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're getting treated the same. We just need to open our eyes up a little bit and look and see that it's not just a color thing. Like, it's a people thing, right? It's a human thing. And so, without rambling anymore,
No, I think
I will hand the
that's a
mic over
perfect
to you,
segue
host.
That's a perfect segue for this, because the angle I wanted to approach Raisin in the Sun is that, yes, it is a play whose problems are rooted in race. But really, what if we examined this from the angle of the American dream or the American experience?
Yeah.
So often, teachers in classrooms, students in classrooms say that line, the American dream, the American dream, the American dream. What does that, dude, what does that really even mean? Like, what do you think you mean by that? Because we can say these things, but unless we really have a perspective of what we're talking about, we're just rambling too. So let's talk about this so-called American dream. What is that? Is there just one American dream? Because it doesn't seem to be the same for everybody. Everybody kind of has their own take on it. When people teach The Great Gatsby, I think that often comes up, that here's a story of the American dream. Gatsby's trying to make the American dream come true, and he's conflicting with blah, blah. Well, what is that American dream? Getting rich? Getting rich and being able to buy your way? I like to poll the classroom and ask them, what is this American dream? And if I get to go to teach A Raisin in the Sun or any of these, what is this American dream you speak of? And sometimes the kids will say, you know, getting, I don't know, maybe it was everybody can grow up to be president, clearly. Maybe it's that, oh, we can all have that big fancy house with the white picket fence. Or maybe it's, oh, getting to be with what. So often that American dream is not just the big shiny house. It's not the big job. It's I had enough money to get big and rich and make my dreams come true.
Yeah,
So the American dream doesn't seem to be a moral issue. It's a financial thing.
I
And
would
that's
agree.
so distinctly different from other cultures around the world.
Yeah.
If I look at Lorraine Hansberry's play, that American dream is true here too.
Hmm.
Every person in the family, they're not mad at each other. They don't hate each other. They love each other, but they each have competing different visions for their American dream. And it's all rooted or it's all predicated upon the chance of money. None of these dreams can come true unless we have money.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, that's the thing with Walter that we can connect with as dads and as uh, husbands and as men, really. I don't, I, I hope I'm not being insensitive here, but I do think that that's like a really specific male thing is to try to push upwards and how far can I go and how far can I reach? And, just that, I guess that exploration type thing. Right. But anyways, I I think Walter it's like the liquor store, right? This liquor store is going to hit it. And how many people do you and I know have said like I've got this idea and like really on the surface it's not really that great of an idea? How many ideas have you and I had that we've been like, golly, this is it right here.
Mhm.
I'm gonna really find my American dream and become wealthy, or I'm gonna at least have enough money to where I can pull myself out of debt and all these things. I can actually pay to go to college, all of these things, right? So yeah, Walter Lee is in search of that wealth. Um, and it's almost like it kind of reminds me of the dragon sickness that Tolkien talks about because
Mhm.
it's like obsessive. Like
Yes.
and it goes into Willie, uh, what was his name? Boy Willie. It goes
Boy, Willie.
into Boy Willie, um, in the piano lesson where we have this like obsessive dream and we're so disillusioned that it's going to work that we're almost willing to sell our soul just a little bit for it. Boy Willie's willing to give up his family's piano for it, like the family inheritance,
Mhm.
right? Walter Lee's willing to give up the literal family inheritance for it. He is willing to sacrifice his sister's future for it. And so, yeah, it is a financial thing, and that is something that we can all connect on.
Yeah. The money comes from Walter Lee's father's death. It's a company insurance check. So it's $10,000. And in 1959, it's a huge windfall. But the problem there is that money goes to mama. That goes to
Yeah.
Lena Younger. So that's grandma's money. And Walter is dying for a chance to make himself into a giant. Um, I don't know. You and I have talked about this. Like, I love August Wilson.
Hmm.
And is his play, The Piano Lesson, is it copying some of these inspirational sources from other characters? Do we do that as writers? Or is the experience just so universal we find ourselves echoing this? Because Walter Lee gets so frustrated and yells that I want to be a giant. I'm trying to make
Hmm.
myself a giant. And it hit the brakes for me there because I thought, boy, that sounds like Troy Maxon from
Hmm.
Fences.
Hmm.
That sounds like Willie Loman from Death of a Salesman, that I
Hmm.
used to be somebody. They remembered me when I went here. How often are our characters struggling with that? I need to feel important. But
How
Walter
often are
Lee,
how often are we like that? Seriously though.
you're talking about the American dream as a reality for us searching for money. We create podcasts for our classrooms and our audiences, and we're struggling against giants out here. Right? It's like,
Yeah, but
dude.
One thing you're talking about too is how they're like, people will remember me,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like, seriously, Scott Carmichael and Scott was at, the Carmichaels were at Father Tom's the other night, and he came back and talked to me, and he was like, "Hey, I'm really proud of you and Crockett for continuing on your podcasts and things like that." And he said, that's one reason I did my podcast is because I want to actually leave something behind, like a trace of myself, like Scott has been here, And is
Yeah.
that not what, I mean, that's literally the reason for my own podcast, is so that Drew was here. This person your dad, your grandfather, your great grandfather existed, and here is X amount of episodes of him doing. Do you know what I'm saying?
His
So
voice, his personality. Yes.
right, yeah. So I mean, I don't know if that specifically is the American dream, but I do think that that is something that I don't know. I want to think that it's like a male thing, and I may be wrong, but I know that like my wife has told me like I've never had that desire, and I know Raji has said like his wife has been like I've never had that. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if it's like a thing for us, like this fear of oblivion. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like this
Yeah.
fear of just being forgotten.
Well,
You
let's
don't
look
want
at
to be
the,
forgotten.
I would say, let's look at the other characters. Lena Younger, Mama, that's her money, Walter Lee.
Yeah.
So what's her dream for that money?
Her dream is she wants to have a house. Like they want to own their own house. They've been living in this.
Right.
Mama is living in the apartment that she and Big Walter they bought when they were newlyweds, and because of really the race issues in Chicago, the whole family has had to live in this. What is it, like a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment?
It's a two-bedroom apartment. She, Mama, and Beneatha share a room. Walter and Ruth share a room. Little
And
Travis
Travis
sleeps on the
sleeps on the
couch.
couch.
He's an
Yeah.
11-year-old boy, almost a man, having to sleep on the couch.
And that's really what she wants to do with that money is for Travis to have his own room, right?
That's right.
It's not really like a house or a piece of land. I want my grandson to actually
Yeah.
have his own bed and his own room. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's not about, I want to be a giant. It's, I want to provide for my family. I want to
yeah.
give my family a place. Well, here we are in 2026. Are we
Mhm.
struggling with a housing market? Are we struggling with home ownership? Are we
Yeah.
struggling with I look around at my house. I am so fortunate. I am so fortunate. I have a small house on a 2-acre property. And we lucked into buying this place 20 some years ago. I know we are blessed. But how many times have I raised my family here and thought, oh, we need more room. We need more room. We need more
Mhm.
room. Jason Crockett, you don't even know what cramped feels like, buddy, when Travis is having to sleep on the couch and so would have to sleep on the floor, and we're all having to just be here together. It's Benitha or Ruth one who gets so frustrated she calls it a rat trap.
Yeah.
Well, symbolically, and literally, it is a rat trap. They find a rat in there, but also
Mm.
this is a trap you can't get out of, this inequality, this housing market, this
Yeah.
unfairness. That $10,000 could give you a shot at giving the boy his own room.
Do you know something I've just thought about too? Us talking about the American dream and Walter wanting, to make it big and things like that. Um, and I think this is really relevant for today. Is the American dream is generational also.
Mm-hmm,
Look at the generations in this household. Mama
mm-hmm.
just wants to provide enough space for everybody. Um, Ruth is kind of with her, right? Like
Yes,
we got to get out of here. We've got to get out of here.
right.
Beneatha, she wants to be a doctor, right? She wants to
Well,
help
she's
up.
going to school to be a doctor, but that's something that I was a little bit about. It's like, Benita, are you the typical college kid who says you're going to be a
She is,
doctor,
yeah.
but you're out there like, well, I want to ride on horseback this week and I want to do piano this week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but I mean, she does have that, like you're saying though, that college young generational dream.
Yeah,
And then Walter Lee has got that where we're at, where it's
yeah,
like, I want to make it. I do think Walter Lee wants to be remembered, but I do think Walter Lee also wants his family to just be proud of him. You
Yeah.
know, I think that's where I just connected with him so much, is because, you know, we're talking about our podcast, and you and I were looking at analytics, and we were looking at the data yesterday, you know, and it's like, part of, you know, the purpose of that podcast was not to make it monetarily, but it'd be really cool if it did. You know, we keep saying that, but at the end of the day, it's, you are kind of like, if I could, as a dad, make it big and show to my family, right? Like, be proud of dad. I have provided a bounty for you.
Yeah.
And my wife can look at me and be like, that's my hero. And my parents can look at me and be like, oh, wow, you really did. You really did turn out to be something. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what Walter Lee's going through. Is
Yeah.
he's a he's a driver. He drives a limousine,
Mhm.
and he's so belittled by that job, and
Yes.
he just wants his family really to look at him and be proud of him, because he feels like he has achieved something. And so I do think that that's a generational American dream, even amongst us, you know, like, um, the boomers, what's their American dream? Theirs has always been to be like as rich as possible, right? Work hard and be rich. And I think millennials, we've always kind of had a dream of having a content life, experiencing a good life. We don't have to be rich. We'd like to be comfortable. You know, I think that the generation that's coming up behind us, I've noticed, they want to work and make money. You know, they're
Yeah.
already, that's why a lot of them are going home. So I just want to go to work. That's what we hear all the time. So it is also relevant to us for that, because our American dream is generational and situational for everybody.
Yeah. 100%. You hit a chord there with that. Walter Lee, I struggled with Walter Lee as a character because I was so mad at him for making
Mm-hmm.
such foolish choices. And I guess on the outside of a tragic figure, it's always easier to see because they're blind and you're not.
Mm-hmm.
But none of us, none of us have that perspective in the real world. We're all blind to our own selfish drives. I
Mm-hmm.
was so mad at Walter Lee, and it's like, dude, you pay attention to what your wife's struggling with, what your mom's
Yeah.
struggling with, listen to wisdom around you. And yet, how many times have I looked around this house and thought, my son is just now newly married and they're struggling to find a place to call their own
Mm-hmm.
in the world we exist in. They're being priced out of
Yeah.
owning a home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I've gone to April saying, what if we were able to help them out by doing something?
Mm-hmm.
That's a man's thing. That's a family's thing of wanting to provide a place for your kids.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I get that, Walter.
I struggled with Walter too, the same reasons, because it was like, dude, what are you doing? You have
Yeah.
got a good wife, and she has tolerated your bull for so long, and you've got a mom who has also done the same, and you also have a mom who, you know, at the end when he loses all the money, she tells Ruth, or Beneath a One, she's like, can you not see that he knows he has done wrong? Like, can we not grieve for him for what he's lost as a person? The money is minuscule in
Mm,
comparison to that. But it's the same thing with Troy Maxon. It's the
yeah.
same thing with Boy Willie. For me, you read these characters and you get so frustrated with them. And then you have that epiphany of, I'm frustrated with this character because I see a lot of myself in this character, right? And that's, I remember the part now where I got like, was getting choked up at when I was reading it at Saltwater Cowboy. It was that part where Boy Willie just finally loses it, and he is saying like, I just want to be a man. Like, I just want to be a provider. I just want you all to know that I can do these things. Do you know what I'm saying? And if you're reading it and you're already frustrated with him, you might look at him and be like, "Oh my gosh, ego trip," right? But dude, I could see and feel that desperation of, I just want to make your life meaningful, right? Like,
Yeah.
will that make my life better? Yeah. And is that something that I want? Of course. but me increasing myself can increase you with me. That's like the goal. And so I just really like Walter Lee. There are things that Walter Lee and I differ on, but there are things that Walter Lee and I are very similar with. And again, I can say the same thing about Boy Willie. There's a lot of things about Boy Willie that we differ on, but there's a lot of things that I'm similar with Boy Willie. Troy Maxson, as a dad, you and I have already talked about that. There are things with Troy that we differ on, but if we're honest, there are things that I can relate to Troy Maxson on, you know. And I've told you this too, Crockett. We've talked about people selling farmland and all this stuff, and you know, look behind me here, sitting on beautiful. It's beautiful. I've lived here my whole life, but I would be lying if a part of me has not been like, you know, you could probably sell your 5 acres for a good $600,000-$700,000, and you could.
But at what cost?
Right. That's yeah.
You get $500,000, but what have you lost?
And that's what I'm saying with Walter Lee and like Boy Willie. I know I keep talking about Boy Willie, but I think that they have thought these things through and have just decided, yeah, I am going to look like a fool here, but this is the only way. This is the only way. And that's kind of Walter Lee's thing is like you just need to trust me and wait and see. You just need to trust me and wait. And it doesn't work out for him.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, I just love these 3 plays. We're talking about Fences and the piano lesson. And I just love them for that because I hate to admit it, but I can connect with these guys. You know, it's a mirror. You look up and you say, I think I am Walter Lee.
That leads me into a problem because I'm specifically asking, like, why don't we use these plays more often in the high school classroom or the community theater stage, yada, yada. But so often plays like A Raisin in the Sun or novels like Gatsby do get used in the high school classroom. You and I are finding how impactful they are to our lives. I see myself in Willie Loman, Troy Maxson. I see it in Walter. We see them. But I'm also a dad at a certain stage in my life, and we're asking high school seniors to see themselves in Gatsby, to see themselves in Walter Lee. And so a problem for me is, while I do think we should be exposing our students to these characters, these social issues, these questions in the classroom, I also have to remind myself, you know, they may not get it at this point. Gatsby is a completely different novel when you're 15 and you read it as a sophomore than it is when you're 37 and you read it as a man questioning your career or other options in your life.
Well, you know, with Gatsby, the thing with Gatsby is they're going through the phase that Gatsby's going through when he first meets Daisy, that puppy love stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Where I think I'm in love with this person because they're beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And they're experiencing that. And so they're kind of getting a glimpse into the future, because who amongst us has not said, if I could just go back and change this, if I could just, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, we are kind of given like it's like a warning. I think with A Raisin in the Sun specifically, though, how many of our students could probably relate with Travis, right? Like, I'm sleeping on the couch, mom's doing the best she can, dad is, I don't know what dad's doing, right? Like, they probably don't understand that part yet. They probably think dad is just got these big ideas, but dang though, Travis says, I want to be just like my dad. You know, like, dang, like that was a thing when I read that got me too. Cause I was like, we're so, we as dads sometimes can be so blind where we're thinking like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. But Travis is like, I just want to be like my dad and drive cars. But also we're like Walter Lee saying, son, no, you can be greater than that. Right. Like you can be greater. Yeah. But anyways, I think that the family situation, that's what I was saying earlier. You know, we got a lot of poor white Appalachia around us. And I think that they can relate to that, you know?
Yeah.
I think that they can. I do think that they can. They may not be able to relate to Willie specifically, but I think the family situation they can absolutely relate to.
I think another character they can relate to is Beneatha, especially my
Mm-hmm.
kids, because they're going to be seniors in high school and they're on the doorstep for college, career, whatever. And
Yeah.
that's Beneatha, who is 1 foot into college. She's already dating George Murchison, who on the surface seems to be like the ideal one. Oh, he's a rich guy. Oh, he's a social guy. He's got money. Ooh.
Yeah.
But George Murchison is so naive and condescending.
Mm-hmm.
He's not right for you. And then here's this guy that you've talked to before. You kind of felt a connection with, but I don't know, Mr. Asagai, who
Yeah.
comes back, and you know what? He's kind of awakening this perspective and this feeling inside you. I think they could resonate with Beneatha because
I think so too.
Beneatha has 1 foot in college, but she's still another heavy foot at home right now. She's
Mm-hmm.
not gotten out of all of that.
Yeah, I think so too. In that irrational dreaming of, I think that maybe that was my problem with Asagai at first was you hit the nail on the head with Beneatha in that whole thing. I think
Mhm.
it annoyed me because I was like, okay, she's like typical college girl. I am, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
but she's really, I mean, and that's what I talked about with my college class on Wednesday night. I was like, man, like people say that you kind of have to search for yourself in college, but it is so true. It is so true. And
You
beneath it's kind
reinvent yourself so much in college.
yeah, and Beneatha um is going through that, and Asagai is really these two she's on that pinnacle or that crux of I could go this
Yeah.
way or I could go that way. And George represents one way she could go, and Asagai represents another way she should go. You've got like your heritage and your roots, and then you've got like your rich and your kind of George is kind of soul to soul. Like what they call him an Uncle Tom, don't they? At one point,
Well, yeah, because Mr. Asagai is here connecting, because Mr. Asagai is from Nigeria,
yeah,
and he talks about the work they're doing in Nigeria to overthrow imperialist influence.
right,
And Benita is a college girl who is always repeating that word. You talked about code words, assimilation.
yeah,
And
yeah,
here you're throwing around anti-capital or post-capitalism, assimilation,
mm-hmm,
that we, she says, as Black people are being assimilated into a white culture, a white hegemony.
mm.
And George rolls his eyes at that, like, oh, you all in your pronouns, you all in
No, he really does though. Yeah,
words. Oh my gosh. A line that George throws at her when they get into their disagreement, I had to write it down. He says, you read books to learn facts, to get grades, to pass the course, to get a degree. It has nothing to do with thoughts. And
yeah,
I just sat there staring at him. But, dude, I have in our school heard a teacher who is no longer in our department say the same thing to students, say the same thing to faculty, say the same thing to administrators as a defense. And people sat there and nodded. Oh,
mm,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You are not just here to get your credit and move on. We are here to do more.
mm-hmm.
Beneatha is getting excited by this cultural connection that she doesn't really have. You are
But
assimilated into white America.
beneath, I guess that's what I just keep kind of diving into this because it's just like what you struck a vein for me on my thoughts. But Ask the Guy is the real deal, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
when we first are introduced to him, for me, it was kind of like that. Okay, it is that typical college experience, right? Like you think that you are so enlightened, right? And so to me, when I was first introduced to Ask the Guy, that was my issue with him. Is I was like, okay, here's the guy that's leading her down that. But then you do realize that, like, no, Ask the Guy is like he is not only talking the talk, but he's walking the walk. And I think Beneath
Yeah,
it kind of has that realization too
yeah,
about like if you're gonna talk about it, you got to be about it.
yeah.
And I think you're talking about our students connecting with Beneatha. I'm just thinking right now, and I'm not trying to offend you all out there that listen to Mr. Crockett's podcast, but so many of you guys think you're smarter than you really are. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all tell us these big ideas and your big thoughts, and we like to hear them because we like to know that you're thinking. But there is always that thought in the back of our mind of, you have no idea what you were talking about, right? Like, you have no clue what you were
I think
talking about.
that's
And
I think
you
that's
think,
youth.
yeah, you think you are so close to the mark, and you are out beyond the solar system, right? Like, you, and again, like I said, we love to hear it because I like to know that you're actually thinking. But at the same time, there is for us that eye roll, and that's what I got with Beneatha, was where it was kind of like, oh, okay, here comes the college girl. Like, okay,
Well,
yeah,
she even
here
she
she
puts
is.
on the outfit that Mr. Asagai brings her, and she puts on the record of the drumming, and
Yeah,
she's in there like, doing
and
her.
Walter Lee's like,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like,
It's like, but neither one of them really know. And she was trying to like I don't know. She was trying to kind of like get caught up in it. Like she was
yeah,
portraying, here's how you're supposed. But neither you don't know.
right.
But Walter Lee comes in teasing her, mocking her. I
But
love that
hey,
line.
he gets swept up in it though, because he like starts getting like,
I
I
know,
am an
a
African
lion hunt.
king. Yeah, yeah.
He was teasing her at one point and said that one day some surgeon, you all with your terms and your social justice issues, one day some surgeon will lean over and ask, now what were your views on civil rights?
Bro, that is where we're at though. That is where we are at. Like, that is I can remember that part because I thought we are at that point in our society to where oh,
Oh.
you voted for her? Yeah, I can't operate on you. I'm sorry. You know, I think Benitha though, when he comes and he like invites her to come back with him, I think that's when she has that realization of, oh, right, if I'm gonna talk about it, I gotta be about it. And I think that's when she kind of matures,
Yeah.
and she becomes that, I think, that person that Hansberry is wanting her people to be, like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna talk about it, you gotta be about it. And
Right.
it is okay for us to be ourselves. And yeah, I think that I said that earlier off mic. I think Asagai is the vehicle for her message.
Yeah.
Of we don't have to assimilate. We can be ourselves, and then the whole family kind of gets wrapped up in that when they decide to, when they tell what's the guy's name? I can't, the man that shows up,
Mr. Lindner.
Mr. Lingner, yeah, that, no, you know what? Y'all are gonna have to deal with us, not us deal
Yeah.
with you. And so, yeah.
As an AP teacher, I try to get into sections of literary criticism with my students. So in that one specific class, this lens kind of made sense to me. We've said before, we get so touchy about these code words and what are your words for this, but really we need to pay attention to that lens. One angle that I teach is like a post-colonial
Mm,
literary criticism, and I think it absolutely applies to this novel to think about how people are shaped and changed by the dominant cultural force in their area.
yeah.
In Hansberry's play, you're talking about a black family who's interacting with the Nigerian Mr. Asagai, who says, our people back in Nigeria are like this. This is where we come from. This is who we are. This is what we sound like. This is what we can be. And yet, Ruth and Beneatha have their hair styled in a very American
Hmm.
white hegemony way. And Beneatha shocks everybody by cutting her hair. They say they're shocked at first and say, nappy. But
Yeah.
why are you ashamed of something that is naturally your hair?
Yeah.
Well, because you're ashamed through a lens of white hegemony. You're looking at it through the 1950s America lens. And
Hmm.
I think our students who are predominantly white can still understand this. How many of you all moved here from California and are assimilating into a Tennessee style? Or how many of you have ever struggled with, I don't know, moving somewhere else or having a new stepfather, and now this family does it this way. You struggle with that cultural adaptation of assimilating into a new way of living, a new voice, yada, yada, yada.
Well, I mean, try not to get too political, but what about for you and me? Uh,
Yes.
this past year really has gotten to where I'm afraid to really mention my. I know that it's ironic because I've been really open on the podcast here, but you're kind of afraid to say, like, to your colleagues, not to students, but to your colleagues, that, well, I actually voted Democrat because we've seen so many of our own colleagues who have said similar things lose their jobs,
Yeah.
and so you have to assimilate to that to stay hidden a little bit.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of the whole thing for them, is we'll assimilate to white America 1950s culture, so we don't have to get firebombed, so we will be inconspicuous and under the radar. But George, at first, when he comes to pick her up, he's like, "Oh my gosh, what have you done to your hair?" But then, do you remember that one part? He kind of starts to like it. He's like,
Yeah, yeah,
"I think I really do like your hair." So I think that was uh,
yeah,
just I guess Hansberry saying, like, "Hey, it's not too late. It's
yeah.
not too late." So
The ending of it when Mr. Lindner comes in, he is the white man from the Clyburn, predominantly white area, who is so polite, so nice. He wants to be so ingratiating to them.
mm,
But you, like Mark from Shoeless Joe, you can say that I'm just here to help you,
yeah,
but you're doing anything but. And either you're lying to yourself or you're outright lying to me in a very pleasing kind of way. You're here to buy me out because you don't want us in your neighborhood.
right.
Um, I would be lying if I said that that didn't still happen in America today, right? Like that didn't
Mm,
still happen. I have heard people in groups around me who, when we get into a heated discussion about why are they coming in rounding up people, why are they doing this? Jason, do you really want those people cluttering up your neighborhood? And it just the audacity of everything that how much is wrong with everything you just said, Bubba.
well,
Those people clutter and invading my neighborhood. The idea of living in this area, and they will throw different areas of the country at you as their basis for examples and say, well, look at what these people have done to areas like. But man, you're throwing stereotypes at me. You're throwing so many different things. You're throwing poverty at me. It is not about the color of the person. We're talking about social inequality. We're talking about so many different things.
yeah, nothing has been more heartbreaking for me to watch when our state decided to split Memphis into thirds. And you're talking about, does that still happen today, where you know we don't mind you, but we don't want you in our neighborhood? That's exactly what our state has done in Memphis. It's the only predominantly black city in the state, and they came in there and they said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to make sure our own people get placed in here, and you don't get represented." And nothing has been more heartbreaking to watch the the black representatives walk out of that vote. They basically got silenced in the vote, and to walk out of that, I mean, it's emotional. Mary Beth
Yeah.
watched it and cried, because it's kind of like, we're better than that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
our state is better than that. We're better than that. Um, and it is the same situation, because you're going to paint it over as like a, well, we think this is what benefits the state the best, and we're a partisan state, and so we think that this really represents our values the most. And we think this represents the average Tennessean the best, and they're the average Tennessean too, brother. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they're a part of us just as much as Memphis is a part of us, just as much as Knoxville is a part of us. Or let's go to this extreme, Johnson City, right? Like you're talking about Bristol.
One corner
How about
to the
that
other.
Bristol, yeah. Just because it's Memphis in the Delta doesn't mean it's any different than Bristol in the mountains, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, that it may not be happening in neighborhoods like it happened there, but it is happening politically in political neighborhoods. And nothing's been more heartbreaking to me than to see our state, which I've always thought has been progressively conservative, which honestly has kind of been a happy medium for me. Just let that go, you know.
Hansberry's play does offer us in America 250, I think, one angle of hope because they don't take the deal. Mr.
Yeah.
Lindner shows up. We talk about devil figures in Shoeless Joe / Field of Dreams. Mark is a devil figure, but Mr. Lindner's a devil figure.
Oh, yes.
And for kids in class to say, no, he's not. He's not mean. He's nice. He's naive, but he's nice. I never said the devil was always mean. The devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape. He's offering you a deal, but if you take it, it's going to lose everything. It's going to cost you your soul. Hansberry offers us one glimmer of hope because Walter Lee stands on business and says, no, we're actually moving into the neighborhood. And we understand that there could potentially be threats on our life. We understand that there's going to be people who don't like this, but we're going to stand up and do the right thing. We're going to stand.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the example we need to follow as Tennesseans, is to stand on business and say, no, that's not true. That's actually worse for our state to do that. We need to stand up and share representation. We need to stand up and do the right thing, even when people are telling us, everybody's telling us, no, we don't want that here.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like I was saying earlier, you're almost afraid to share these thoughts because you're afraid you're going to lose your job or something, you know, but I just think that we're better than that. And I think that, you know, one thing Walter Lee I love, and that got me too, at the end when Mama's like, he became a man now.
He finally came to manhood today,
right.
Like a rainbow after the rain, she said.
Yeah. And he's ready to, you know, he's the one leading the charge on, let's take the deal. Let's take the deal. Let's take the deal. We got to bail out. And then when Mr. Lindner comes up, because he's the one who calls and says, all right, we're going to come talk to us. And then Walter Lee's like, no, it ain't happening. Yeah, you're not going to. And so,
you know, the ending of this when they're packing up to leave in the moving truck and they're so happy, but they also know there could be like 40 years of problems here. It reminded me of the Israelites being set free from Egypt, that here we are, we're setting out for the unknown. Could be a land of milk and honey. Could not.
Yeah.
She says, or they say, I hope you, Mr. Lindner says, I hope you people know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But they're taking the right action.
I think it's hard as a white person to see in a book about race or play, to see the devil be the white guy. It is hard. And that's to people who have probably rolled their eyes at me this whole podcast. I would just say, I understand that you don't want to say that, right? I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that this area of the country I love, the South, it would be easy to ignore the slavery part and say, let's move on and get over that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to think about that. But I would just say, like, that's why it's important to read these plays and these books. It's important to read your Jordan L. Hurston. It's important to read your August Wilson. It's important to read even though it may be plagiarized. You're Alex Haley, right? Like it's important to read these things because you need to just be aware of what's happening on the other side, right? You just need to be aware of what's happening on the other side. It's kind of like the district thing I was talking about. It's really easy as a white Tennessean to look at that and say, we're not taking away the black vote. We're just wanting it to be Republican. I text my friend in Memphis because I'm having to do this review for my research and he's already done it. So I text him and said, hey, how did you get through this process? And I didn't hear back from him for about 3 days. And this is when they had just announced that. And he responded back to me. He said, I'm so sorry. I thought I responded to this. They're out here taking away our rights in Memphis. And so maybe to you, that's your reality. But like you also need to consider like what's happening to the people that's impacted. Does that make sense? I know I'm rambling.
Yeah. No. You said earlier or we talked earlier about how the content that we create and the things that these writers are creating, that we're leaving a lasting legacy of I existed, here's what I was, here's what I thought, here's what I believed. If we don't keep reading those voices, if we only read this voice here, then those people truly do die a second death, that they're gone from us forever. It is important to keep reading them because they are still alive in our communities, in our classrooms, in our homes, in our neighborhoods. They are still here. People are people are people. And be offended that the white man is represented as the devil in this play. Be offended by it. Sometimes the devil is a white man.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes he's a white man. And sometimes he's going to be whatever mask he needs to wear to get in the door. Sometimes he looks like Joe McCarthy and he's starting a witch hunt for commies in the community. Sometimes he's going to look like this. It's that devil.
Sometimes he's going to have sunglasses and a dog.
Sometimes he's going to have those sunglasses and a dog and walk from town to town. Sometimes he's going to wear boots and a jean jacket and have no face at all.
Yeah.
The devil is like, that's how he gets in the door in the first place, that he's adapting to whatever the situation is. And we can say devil, capital D, devil, little d. I don't care, people. We're talking about evil. Sometimes it wears a white face and sometimes it doesn't.
For me, especially with the race stuff, and I'm sure people are saying like, oh, I didn't know he was that woke, or I didn't know he was that liberal, or he's a DNC shrill or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? To me, it's not that at all. It's just humanity, It's just being a decent person. Just recognizing that my experience and your experience are not the same. That goes with our students. My experience in my life is not the same as theirs. I've had a good life, I've had a good life. I mean, we all go through hard times, and I probably have complained to you about stuff, but I'm blessed, man. Like we were talking about cramped houses. I'm one kid away from me having a kid sleeping on the couch. Do you know what I'm saying? But I'm blessed. Like I've had a good life. I've had good parents, and I've really not felt like true poverty and struggle. And so if I took that to the classroom and ignored your poverty and struggle, when those that come up to me and always are like, hey, do you have a snack? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you have $1 that I could have? I know that they say that joking, but I see, like, I see you, right? Like I know why you're asking me that. And sometimes I don't, and I'm sorry. But if I just was like, I get over it, right? Like, get over it. I'm only viewing things from my experience. And that to me, it's not woke. If people say it's woke, that's because they want you to buy into the lie. And I just think that it's just being a human. It's just being a human being, right? Just recognizing people for who they are.
That's exactly what I was going to say. What made you so woke? Oh, that I think you have a right to exist?
Right. Yeah. I mean, really.
The audacity.
Let me just say it. I mean, I'm a Christian. Do I agree with homosexuality from a biblical stance? No. But you have a right to exist in this country as much as I have a right to exist in this country and worship my God. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just because I agree and acknowledge your right to existence doesn't mean that I completely agree with you. Does that make sense? Like, that's not evil. That's not insidious. That is just the base level of humanity. And in my opinion, that is the base level of our faith, is to acknowledge you and say, I don't know your experience, but I'm here to help. Right? Like, I'm here to help you. And so
the same people who put me in front of a TV to watch Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street with an integrated cast living in a neighborhood
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air
are the same
Family
generation
Matters.
that's telling me what made you so woke? What radicalized you? What radicalized me that I was alive, that I went to Bible school and I was told that what you have done for the least of me, you have done for me. That's what radicalized me.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you know, it's just like we were talking. I told you and Sam, when I was like 3 and 4 years old, I'm not ashamed to admit my favorite movie was The Bodyguard, because my mom watched that movie over and over and over. You're talking about interracial couples and a black woman leading the cast, and then you know what we watched after that? Got hooked on The Preacher's Wife. You know, okay, yeah, there's a commonality. It's Whitney Houston, but no, man, I grew up on black entertainment, right? And it's exactly what you're saying. These people who raised us up on that are the same people who are turning around and saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what happened here?" Yeah. So, yeah.
I do think Hansberry offers a sliver of light for America 250, that when they finally land their goodness, Ruth shouts out, "Goodbye, misery. I don't ever want to see your ugly face again." And boy, I felt that. Yeah. Goodbye, misery.
Yeah.
They pack up and Mama goes around the house, touching the walls, picking up her flower, and maybe that flower will have a chance to grow.
I love this play. I love this play. I think that, like I said, it offers something for everybody. You know, that's one reason I love it. I think that I could connect with every character. I could see every character, like we were talking about. I recognized Benitha, know her, recognize Mama, know her, recognize Ruth, know her, recognize Walter Lee because he might be myself. Do you know what I'm saying? But then also, like I said, it just gives you that perspective that we need of another human, like in acknowledging, I understand you. So.
Yeah. That's all I've got to say about it, buddy.
Okay, that's all I got to say about that.
That's all I've got to say. MOON. That's all I've got to say about that.
I feel like I've really been rambling on these lately. So
no, you have not. No, dude, you have not.
I think I've been cooped up in the house too long. So
don't say that. Don't say that, because you're going to be back at school in a couple weeks, and you'll be like, I wish I was at home. I wish I was back at home on summer break. Second Stage is a Free Zone Radio production, produced here in Sparta, Tennessee. What actually is Free Zone Radio? A group of content creators, teachers, readers, and classroom experts who make shows for our students, for other educators, and for anyone who likes a good read. If you enjoyed what you hear, please be sure to click like on this episode and subscribe to the show to follow for more. If you have ideas for us, send them to freezonradiopodcasts@gmail.com. That's freezonradiopodcasts, plural, @gmail.com. And be sure to listen to our other show, With Honors, and our brother podcast, A Dead Man's Books. All of them available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to great content.
Hey everyone, my name is Drew, and I want to talk to you about my show, A Dead Man's Books. The show was created with the mindset of whenever I pass away, as morbidly as that sounds, that my children would inherit my books. And of all the things that I'm going to pass down to them, I think that that's the one thing that I want them to make sure that they keep and go through on their own time. But I want to be there next to them whenever they read these things. And so I created a podcast so that they could go back and listen to me and my friends and other people as we read through these books and what we had to think about it. But it's grown to so much more. We've got authors we interview. We talk about everyday life. We talk about how literature connects to life. All of those things in one place. And now we want you to come along with us and join us. This is a podcast not just for my kids, but for everyone who loves to read, everyone who loves a good story, everyone who's a parent, everyone who's a teacher, everyone who just enjoys literature. This is a place to come. So come join us every Monday on A Dead Man's Books.